We'll get started. Good evening. I see some familiar faces. Who was here the last meeting? Did you make a telescope? Did you get a chance to use it? What did you look at? You see craters and mountains? They look pretty cool. Did you get a chance to look at the planets at all, Jupiter or Saturn? Okay. We'll have clear nights again. Yeah. Maybe March, but we'll have clear nights again. But they're in the southwest. They're very bright. Try to look at them with your telescope. You'll be very excited. Anybody else? Everybody new? Did you use yours, Dennis? What did you see? Stop sign. Well, that's not why we made them, but okay. I had to try it right away when I got home. Yes. This is Amy. She's from the Geauga County Libraries. She's going to talk a little bit about telescopes.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all here. Thank you for coming out. I am very excited about this program series. It's a partnership with the Geauga County Library and the Bergen Library and the Geauga Park, the Park Foundation, and the Chagrin Valley Astronomical Society. And the Park Foundation has donated telescopes, as you can see right here. And these are available at all four of our main branches, and you can check them out for free. So I wanted to kind of let you know a little bit about that, let you know that we have those available. In order to check out a telescope, you'll have to go online to our website. You'll watch a short 7-minute video about the telescope, telling you a little bit about it, how to use it, what kind it is. And then you take a short quiz. It's only 5 questions, so you don't need to be too daunted by that. A little 5-question quiz, and once you've done that, it'll send your information. It'll add a note to your card, so that when you go in to check it out, they know that you've completed the quiz and that you can check out the telescope there. They check out for 7 days. There's no renewal, so it's just a 7-day checkout. So they're here. We've got some information here later when you're looking around about some upcoming programs, and there's some magnets here that have our website, so you know how to get to the site and take the telescope quiz. So I'm very happy to see all of you here today, and I am looking forward to this presentation.
Okay, so am I.
Very good.
Okay, let me turn this off. Maybe. There we go. And we'll get the lights. Where's my stuff? There it is. And we'll start with this. Here we are. This is, if you go out and look up tonight, right now, you'll get a face full of rain. If there weren't any clouds, this is what we'd see. Here's the Milky Way. And what we're going to start with is right over here. Everybody's favorite constellation, Ursa Major. Now, what you'll see tonight, the constellations I've put in kind of a yellow-green. When you see something in red, that's not a constellation, that's called an asterism. A constellation has a defined area of the sky. There's 88 of them. Some of them are large, some are small. Ursa Major is one of the larger. Here we go. Everybody recognize this? What is it? Big Dipper. That's right, and it's an asterism. It's not an official constellation, it's just a recognizable pattern of stars. But there's quite a few, and it makes it easier to find what we're looking for. With this one, these 2 stars here, at the end of the Dipper, are the pointer stars, and they lead right up to Polaris. So we look, there's Polaris, the North Star. This is right above the North Pole. So as the night goes on, and you'll see it later, everything rotates around that point. This star stays right there. The other pointers we have are right back here, and they lead us to this star. Little Dipper. That's also Ursa Minor, the little bear. Here, these pointer stars come up here to Thuban. Thuban is kind of nondescript. Everybody wonders why we draw attention to it. When the Egyptians were building the pyramids, this was their pole star. There's a wobble in the Earth's axis as it rotates around, and so it, over 5,000 years, the pole star went from here up to here. Thuban is part of Draco, the dragon, and we'll get back to him later. He figures into a few tales. But here's the precession circle, it's called. Here's where 5,000 years ago, this was the North Star. Now it's up here. In about 11,000 years, it'll be over here with Vega. And actually be pretty close because there's not only this wobble, there's a wobble inside of that wobble. So it goes like this all the way around. 26,000 years to make a complete cycle. So coming back to our pointers, and it should be a little straighter than that, we follow that up and it takes us over here to Deneb. Deneb is Arabic for tail. In a minute we'll see why. But here's Deneb, Altair, and Vega. It's the summer triangle. Okay, I know this is December, but the summer triangle is still up. It'll be setting here shortly. It's called the summer triangle because in early summer it rises just before dawn. But we have Deneb, Altair, and Vega. Deneb hides the Northern Cross. That's an asterism. On a clear night, you can see it standing up in the west right now. The constellation here is Cygnus, the swan. Here's the tail. Alberio is the nose of the swan, and here's his wings. Aquila with Altair, that's the tail of the eagle. Here's his wings. Lyra is a lyre or a harp. You can see the shape of a harp. Many cultures had this, they called it vulture cadence. And it was a vulture carrying a harp in his beak. Why a vulture would carry a harp in his beak, I don't know, but it fits in with the birds here. Come back to the Big Dipper. Follow from the center of the Dipper through Polaris, and we come over here to this bright W of stars. That's Cassiopeia, or Cassiopeia. No matter how you pronounce it, someone will correct you. Cassiopeia was the lady in the chair. She was a queen of Ethiopia, not our Ethiopia. The Greeks had a different country called Ethiopia in Asia Minor. Anyways, Cassiopeia was the queen. Cepheus was her husband, the king. Cepheus was a very weak king, which is why his stars are dim. On a dark night, you'll have trouble finding this constellation, whereas she is very bright. Her stars really stand out. So she was a powerful queen. She was running the show. The problem with Cassiopeia is she thought she was the most beautiful woman on earth. Well, Zeus's wife, Hera, didn't take kindly to that. So to pacify his wife, Zeus tied Cassiopeia to a chair and threw her up in the sky and put her close enough to Polaris that she never sets. She just comes around here and spends half her life and half the night upside down. That would teach her humility. Now, furthermore, they took her daughter, their daughter, where are we? Andromeda, and chained her to a rock by the seashore, and had Cetus, the sea monster, come to devour her. Well, lucky for Andromeda and the king and queen, Perseus, the hero, happens by on his way back from killing Medusa. There's Medusa. This star is called Algol. It's Arabic for the ghoul. It's the head of Medusa. And if you remember your mythology, Medusa was so ugly that if you looked at her, you would turn to stone. Well, so Perseus killed Medusa with a mirror. Medusa saw itself in the mirror, turned to stone. Perseus chopped its head off, happens along, sees Andromeda, rescues her, well, uses the face to turn Cetus to stone, rescues Andromeda, lives happily ever after, tosses the head of Medusa out of the way, and out of the head of Medusa runs Pegasus, the winged horse. Why, I don't know, but he does. And then Cassiopeia stays in the sky, Cepheus is still weak, Andromeda and Perseus are living happily ever after. If we back up here a little bit to Cassiopeia, and we have this star right here. Is that the one? Yes. That star. Cross through here from this is like the other part of the chair, through the bright one. It brings us to a point right here. That's where we'll find the Andromeda Galaxy. Brightest galaxy in the night sky. You can see it with your naked eye on a dark, moonless night. It'll be just a little fuzzy patch right up there. And it's the farthest thing, 2.4 million light years away, the farthest thing you can see with your eye. Right off of here, this part of Andromeda. We're right where she's chained to the rock. Now the head of Andromeda is really part of Pegasus here, the Great Square. This is an asterism, the Great Square of Pegasus. This star is part of Andromeda, but we include it with the square. So let's move ahead. About 8 hours or 4 months, same thing. What the sky looks like 8 hours from right now, it'll look like right now in 4 months. And here you see Polaris never changed. Everything goes around it. But we're coming off our Big Dipper again. Right straight off the top, we come to Capella. Capella is Latin for little goat. It's part of Auriga. The Babylonians had this constellation as a herd of goats. The Greeks took that in and then added a chariot, because a chariot was their really dominant military weapon. So they kept the goat right here, and these three stars are called the kids. So this is a charioteer. He doesn't have his chariot, just a chariot driver with a goat on his shoulder and kids in his lap. So he's transporting a family of goats. Come straight diagonally through the Big Dipper. Ignore this. This is a glitch in the program. You come to Pollux, Castor and Pollux. Anybody know who those were? The twins, maybe? Right there. They were twin half-brothers, same mom, different dads. Castor was mortal, Pollux was immortal. When Castor died of old age, Pollux went to Zeus and said, "Give him some of my immortality so we can be together again." So Zeus took both of them, threw them up in the sky. So now they're eternally together, side by side. Here from Capella, we go to Menkainen. Right here you'll see, and especially in the winter sky, of the 20 brightest stars in the sky, 8 of them are right here. And here we'll go through them all. Pollux, Procyon, Sirius, Rigel, Aldebaran, and Betelgeuse. That makes a G. Welcome to medieval astronomy. In Renaissance England, they looked up, the Archbishop looked up and saw this and said, "This is proof there's a God, because he put his initial in the sky." Which is interesting, except English and German are the only languages that use a G. So you wonder, did the French see a D, and the Italians see a D, and the Hebrew see a Y, and so on. But anyways, this was important to them then. Here we have Orion, winter constellation. This is be late winter, early spring. You see his belt stars right here, the 3 belt. Here's the sword, his shield, and his club. Now, why you would fight with a club when you have a sword hanging off your belt, I don't know, but he does. We can use the belt stars here to find Sirius, the dog star, brightest star in the night sky. Sirius rises right before the sun in early August. And that's why we have the dog days of summer, because the dog star rises just before the sun. The Egyptians thought that's why summers were so hot, because if the sun is bright and gives you heat, and this star is bright, it must give you a little more heat, and the two together make summer very hot. Coming this way off the belt, we have this V, the Hyades. The Hyades and the Pleiades here, together they're called the Atlantides, the daughters of Atlas. The Pleiades here are the 7 sisters. If you look closely on a dark night, you'll see 9. That's because these 2 over here are Atlas and Pleione, that's mom and dad. And then the 7 girls. They're being protected here by Taurus, the bull. Orion is trying to get the Pleiades, and not necessarily for tea. He's been chasing them. They're hiding behind the bull, and they're asking the bull to save him. Orion, being a fair fighter, brings along his dogs, Canis Major and Canis Minor, to help even the score. He never gets the Pleiades. We'll get back into that later. But Orion is probably the dominant winter constellation. You'll see it high in the south. Here in April, you'll see it setting toward the west. If we come back to our Big Dipper, take these pointers off the bottom, we come to Regulus. Regulus, the alpha star of Leo the lion. You see the backwards question mark here. That's what makes it most recognizable. You see this question mark and then the triangle here. And that's Leo. Some have him being the Nemean lion that Hercules has to kill in one of his labors. Between Gemini and Leo, if you know your astrology, is Cancer. Cancer is a crab. This crab is in the sky because that's where Hercules kicked him. We'll get into that later too. But one thing you'll notice is the sure sign of spring is when Leo chases Orion out of the night sky. And here he comes. Okay, back to our Big Dipper. Early spring, Big Dipper is high in the sky, almost straight up. We follow an arc off the handle. That takes us to Arcturus. You may have heard this, arc to Arcturus and spike to Spica. Arcturus is part of Boötes, the herder, the herdsman. He's herding the 2 bears. How he's herding 2 bears, I don't know, but he's herding them. After Arcturus, we come down, we spike to Spica. Spica is part of Virgo. Spica is Latin for ear of grain. It's a sheaf of wheat she's holding. Virgo is Ceres, the Roman goddess of the harvest. So if you were a Roman farmer, after every harvest, you would take a small portion of your harvest to the temple for Ceres, leave an offering, so that next year you would have a good harvest again. That would keep your ground fertile, and that just transferred into the fertility goddess, and that's where we get Virgo from. Beyond Virgo, here we go. We make a curve, we arc to Arcturus, spike to Spica, curve to Corvus. Corvus is the crow. It kind of looks like a kite sitting down here. March, April, low in the south. This is the crow that Apollo sent. Apollo is one of the Roman gods. Sent the crow to get him a cup of water. Well, on his way there, the crow happened across a fig tree. Stopped to eat figs. Knew he was in trouble for being late. So he came back with the cup and a snake. And said, well, I'm late because the snake kept me from getting to the cup. Well, apparently, Apollo smelt fig on his breath, saw through his lie, and threw all three of them up into the sky. So now Corvus follows Crater, the cup. He's always right behind, and he's eternally thirsty because he can never get a drink of water. He's just that close, and yet that far. So we come back around here, and following off the first part of the handle, we come to another asterism, the keystone. The keystone is really the breastplate of Hercules. Hercules is a very busy man in the sky. You're familiar with his 12 labors. One of his first labors was standing on the head of the dragon. This is the dragon that was guarding the golden apples. I think it was his 11th labor. The Hesperides had the golden apples. Hercules had to take them, steal them, so he stood on the head of the dragon to kill him and took the golden apples. And with his other foot, he's over here kicking the crab out of the sky. This is the crab that Hera, Zeus's wife, who didn't like Hercules, sent to bother him. He bit him on the toe. Hercules got annoyed and kicked him over here into the sky. So we come along a little farther. Let's go to probably late July, early August here. And we'll be looking this direction. Remember our summer triangle? Well, it's summer now, so the triangle is straight up high. We're going to look at Altair, which is Aquila, our eagle. And he's pointing to this little patch right here, this little fuzzy patch. This is the Milky Way. Center of the Milky Way is right about here. This is called the Sagittarius arm. It's the next arm inward from us to the center of the galaxy. What's interesting about this little patch here is there's a gap in the Sagittarius arm, and this patch is the Norma arm, the next one in from that. It's as close as we can see to the center of the galaxy in optical light. In infrared and radio waves, we can see through all this dust and really see the core of the galaxy. But optically, this is the farthest we can come in. That's part of, it's called the scutum star cloud. Here, scutum is the shield. It's Latin for shield. The official name is Sobieski scutum. John Sobieski was a historical figure. He was a king of Poland, and he was instrumental in defeating the Turks at the Battle of Vienna. He really stopped the Turkish advance, and without him, who knows how far they would have gone. So to kind of commemorate what he did, they took 4 stars, called it a shield, put it in the sky to honor him. He's one of the few actual historical figures to have something in the sky. If we come down beyond the scutum, the shield, we see Sagittarius, the archer. How you get an archer here, to me, involves either heavy drinking or sleep deprivation. But we have a few asterisms here. One is the teapot. Once you see this in the sky, then you'll never miss it. It really stands out. You know it's a teapot because here's the steam coming out of the spout. And if you're going to have tea, you're going to need a spoon. So there's your spoon. Another asterism we have in here involves half the teapot, and that's a dipper here. This is, some people confuse this for the Little Dipper. Little Dipper is always over here. It's called the Milk Dipper because it's in the Milky Way. And it's coming down to scoop part of the Milky Way up. But this is all part of Sagittarius. So if we're going to have an archer, we really need an arrow. Here's our arrow. That's Sagitta. Sagitta is Latin. There it is. Sagitta is Latin for arrow. Sagittarius is the archer. The problem with this arrow is it didn't come from Sagittarius. It came from our good friend, Hercules, who, while he's standing on the dragon, and he's already kicked the crab out of the sky, he is shooting an arrow at the Stymphalian birds, which is, I think, his 11th. These were almost indestructible birds unless they were flying, so he scared them up into the air and used arrows dipped in the blood of Hydra, remember the snake, and he's shooting them at the 3 birds. So if we come back here across the Milky Way, we see why Orion never gets to Pleiades. Orion had many enemies. He threatened to kill every living thing on Earth. So Gaia, the goddess of the Earth, sent a scorpion, to sting him and kill him. And the scorpion did his job. He stung Orion, killed him. So to reward the scorpion, Gaia put him in the air. And Scorpius is a summer August constellation. Orion is a winter February constellation. The 2 of them are never in the sky together. They're still mortal enemies, and they're still chasing each other around, and they never see each other because they're at opposite ends of the sky. And having said that, I'm done. Let me get some lights. Any questions? I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope everybody learned a little something from it. The asterisms that I highlighted in red, if you look, you'll see them. They'll pop out at you. The Northern Cross, the Summer Triangle, the teapot, and the spoon at Sagittarius. So keep an eye out for them on a clear night. And you use those as your starting points. Starting with the Big Dipper, use those as your starting points and find your way around the sky. Any questions? Yes?
What's the easiest way to find the kettle?
Oh, the teapot?
Oh, yeah.
It'll be in the summer. You should be able to see the Milky Way coming down. If you live with a lot of light pollution, it'll just be a real hazy line in the sky. But it's always in the south, and it's low. It's just barely above the horizon. And it's always tilted like it's pouring out the tea. Once you start in the summer, probably around July, late July, start looking for it, and you'll see it come up. And then once you see it, you'll never not see it. Then you never see Sagittarius, you only see the teapot. Okay, I have a few handouts here. This side is the Big Dipper, finding your way around. This side helps you with what you find with Orion. So if you would take one and pass them along, please. Oh, did it get one that wasn't? Yeah. Okay. Next month, we will be at Burton Public Library, January 6th. Check the website. You can check our website, the library website, the Park District website, Burton Library website. We'll all have our meetings on there. We're going to discuss exploring the solar system. Pretty exciting. We go from the sun all the way out to the very end. And interesting. I hope to see everybody back. In the meantime, continue using your telescopes. I'd like to get a report next month on what you saw with the planets, Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn especially, you'll have more time with Saturn because it's farther behind. And the moon, look at the moon during different phases. Every night, there'll be a look just a little bit different because the shadow's in a different spot. And don't be afraid to take notes, write down or draw what you saw. We have a newsletter our club puts out quarterly. If you have interesting drawings of the moon, what you saw, give them to me, and we'll pick the best ones out, and we'll publish them in our newsletter. So, thank you all for coming. We have some library handouts here. Don't forget the telescopes. They're free. Just take care of them, bring them back. You'll learn all about that in the video. It's a 4.5. It's a serious telescope. You can see a lot with this. You can see a lot of nebulas. The Andromeda Galaxy you'll see in there. Pretty exciting. Since I tried to quit a little early, if you go out the drive here, turn left, 3/4 of a mile up the road, you'll see another observatory park sign, or park district sign, says Nassau Station. That's the old Case Western Observatory. It's part of the park now. We have somebody over there staffing it right now. We can't see anything because it's cloudy, but you can go up and you can look at the telescope. It's a 36-inch telescope, so it's this big around. It is monstrous. It is so cool. And it's, none of us would ever buy one like that, but we can use that for free. As the weather changes and gets a little more cooperative, we hope to schedule observing nights with the club where we can go up there and just look at all kinds of things. So if you have time, just take a left on Clay Street. It'll be the first real driveway you come to. There'll be a sign out there. The parking lot lights will be on. Stop in. It's a really cool building, really cool telescope. I hope to see you over there. Okay, thank you.